Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mels 604, our fourth week. I want to cover some housekeeping things before we get started on the materials tonight. I spoke at length last week about um, the new handbook, that the only thing really new for you folks in 604 is that you have to put one proof or evidence in uh, task stream for each of the 21 competencies. This takes place of the final conference between you, your internship supervisor, and the principal, where you had to go down the list and show what you had done. So it's
Okay.
not really anything additional. It's just a different way to express that. There's been a video added. I have it at the bottom of our course overview page, professional competencies and task stream, and it's a YouTube video by Dr. Neal that explains it to you and shows you how you put those in. So
Okay.
we wanted more clarification, and he's giving it to us. So there's some more information for you. So remember, you folks were already doing peer reviews, you were already doing Zoom reviews, and you were already doing competencies, but you did it at your final meeting in 605 with your principal and your internship supervisor. Now this takes the place of that meeting. So you really don't have any new work to do other than, instead of bringing it in written form or whatever to that meeting, you just drop it in task stream now, which makes it a lot easier for everybody.
Okay.
Also on our um, course overview page where I put all of our new stuff, I've got a student information. You click on that. Now, there's no personal information. All I have on that is the student's name of everybody in our class, their email address for Gardner Webb, and I've got their hometown, so you'll know geographically where they are, and then their work location. That's all public information. So if
Okay.
you want to get together or if you want to contact somebody nearby, you'll know where they are. I didn't put any personal information on there, so there's that. So that's more information for everybody. Um, Zooms, everybody knows that you have to do some Zoom peer review sessions. Now let me be clear about those. It says here that we will do 6 of those. That doesn't mean that every group will do 6. As I have told you, if you have already had your work, if everybody in your group has worked, that component has already been peer reviewed and posted to task stream, then you don't have, then you get a free week off. Make
Okay.
sure you put that, give me that information, put it in, put it in Blackboard, or
Okay.
email me the link to that video.
Okay.
I'm not interested in you doing the work second time. That was never. I never intended that any of you. I didn't figure that many of you would do 6. I figured if I could get 2 out of everybody, I'd be doing well, because I knew that most of this stuff had already been done.
Okay.
It's not important that you do it for me. It's just important that it got done. So again, I had an email last night for those of you who email. Again, if everybody, now, if one person in your group has not had their work reviewed, or didn't participate in a Zoom review, then you need to have a meeting. But if
Okay.
everybody's work has already been reviewed and it's already been posted to task stream, then you get that week off. So I'm hoping that each group will only have a couple. I wouldn't normally have you do all 6, but if you have to do all 6, that means you're behind. So it's a good thing, it'll catch you up. So that's Zoom reviews. Again, you don't have to repeat them if you've already done them. All right, now, last thing, I am going to switch over to discussion board. There has been some confusion about discussion board, so let me address that now. Let's see. All right, here we go. Discussion board. Now, what I have told you is this: I don't do weekly turn-ins on discussion board.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you don't have to do them. It means you do them on your schedule this semester. If you do
Yes.
them all the first week, or if you do them all the last week, that's up to you. That's the
Okay.
beauty of online education, is it's self-paced at your time. I would ask that you try to stay caught up on your peer reviews and putting your work in for peer review, because you have others that are depending on you. But I've given you a 2-week window on those. So it's not like you got one day to do it. I've given you a 2-week window on those. But your other discussion boards and your weekly assignments, you can do them anytime, but they do have to be done. I do have to have evidence that you did something in this course that you would normally do in a regular face-to-face course. So I don't have a lot. I have 10 discussion boards and 2 weekly assignments, which pretty much monitors the number of classes that we have. The first night was an introductory, and I think we have about 12 or 13 classes, one night's review. So you have 12 weeks of work and 12 classes, basically 12 classes in a 14-week semester. This would mirror what you'd be responsible for if you were a seated student. So again, you can do them whenever you want to, but you must do them.
Yes, sir.
So that will clear that up. All right, so I've covered everything.
So Dr. Lamb, so then the only thing, what should be already in the assignment box?
The only thing so far is just, again, the only thing required so far is any of this component work. So let's look at assignment Dropbox. Now discussion boards, again, as you can see, some people have already, I've got 9 people have put their week 1 or their discussion board 1 in. 19 did that. Let's see, I've got 6 did, I'm getting a bit of this. I'm getting a little bit of discussion board work right now. Mostly I'm getting component work. Just stay up with your component work. That's the only thing that there is a timeline. So if we look at the weekly schedule, let me go to New Share and look at the weekly schedule and see where we are with that. Come on now. Go all windows, weekly schedule, share screen. All right, so you can see on week 3 last week, you were supposed to have component B uploaded in discussion board for peer review. And this week you were to have C. This is the APTEL, the second of the evidence artifacts. You were to have component C in discussion board for peer review this week. So those are the only required turn-ins we've had so far. The others, again, you do them at your time.
Okay.
I think I even sent an email out to that, but so that's where we are. So that leads me to the next thing that I was going to cover. Thank you, Angela. All right, so here's this week. So this week, our topic, our module, educational research for instructional development, and you had some reading to do. You had one website to go to, the Boolean website. You had one discussion board that goes with this. Again, I don't expect you, if you want to do it this week, fine. If you don't, that's fine. It's up to you, but you do have to do it. So discussion board 3 went with this week's work. So that's where we are. And again, by this point in the semester, APTEL, which is the second of the evidence artifacts, you should have B and C in discussion board for peer review. And then next week, peer reviews are due of those. So make sure you keep up with your group, and you have your individual written ones to do, but make sure you keep up with your group and be ready to do your group presentations.
Yes.
Which I think will start next week. Let's look at that schedule. New share, back to the desktop. So Zoom session 5, which is next week. Where we are with that. We should have Zoom presentation of component 2B. If anybody did not already have that peer review, get together and do that, and we'll see what we get next week. Hopefully we'll have some peer reviews next week. If you don't remember who's in your group, if you click on that button there on group file, it'll tell you who's in your group. So if you haven't already done it between now, if not everybody in your group had already had their work peer reviewed and put into the group, review. If everybody is already past that, then you're next. So make sure that you keep up.
So was that okay then when I emailed my teammates and CC'd to you that to see if they had finished, and that was okay?
Yes, that's
right.
exactly what you do.
Okay.
We're trying to, what I'm trying to do, and not we, what I'm trying to do is present this class in a more modern method of how we conduct business through social media and electronic media nowadays, rather than everybody have to get together and meet. And this is more of how we do business in we're trying to bring schools into the modern world, how business does business. And they use GoToMeeting, we use Zoom. But we don't have meetings just for the sake of having meetings. If you've already got your work done, then you don't have to have the meeting and you go on about your business. That's the way corporate America does theirs, and we wonder how come they operate a lot more effectively and efficiently than we do. Well, they don't have regularly scheduled meetings all the time that take up productive work time. So that's what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do. So let's look at the materials that I have for you tonight under Zoom session 4. Again, I am not going to sit and go through these. The only one I'm really going to go through with any detail tonight is the database decision making one, because I developed it, and so you probably haven't seen something like it before. You might have seen something like it, but it's been adapted for the school business. The others, I have them here for you so that you can put them again in your toolkit. What I am trying to do with our weekly sessions, of course, is to give you materials that I have found, or that we have found over the years, that you're going to need as a beginning administrator. We have so many terms and acronyms, but things change from year to year, but certain things don't change. And one of the things that I found years and years ago as a new administrator was I didn't have much in my toolkit when I got to the job. Just reading the books, you can't take the textbook around with you in the school building or to meetings or to prepare for meetings. I didn't have a lot of tools, professional tools in my toolkit. And one of the things that I always said, if I ever taught a curriculum course, which I have now several times, I would teach it from the standpoint of, here, let me show you some things, or let me give you some tools that you're going to need once you get out in the real world into the business. So the first one tonight is a PowerPoint on SMART goals. Let me go to it. And you've heard about SMART goals forever. You know what SMART goals are. And here they are. It's a PowerPoint, and it's a primer for you as the person from the administrative perspective, working with a group of teachers on how to develop SMART goals. So you can use this with them, but this is from the administrative perspective. What are they? Why use them? How you write them? And it's basically, somebody's probably gone over this with you, but this is the document that you need when you're working SMART goals. Data-based decision making, using data and research information from your school and outside your school to set goals for your school. This is the process. This is how you do it. And there's some activities in here that you can do with teachers. But this is something that you need to download and keep.
Okay.
It's the how-to guide of how to do SMART goals, which are using research and data to develop goals inside your school. So that's the first of those tools that you need. The second thing I want to go over tonight is quality reviews. This is more of, let me get it here. Okay, this is the quality review process of how you go about setting up a quality review. And you start with the 5 principles being key, and then you go to um, exactly how it's done. It's a short one, but I'm a big believer in quality reviews in terms of curriculum, building a culture of teaching and learning in your building that is effective. Quality reviews is a major part of that. Schools should go through it. I think at least once a year should go through quality review. It can be internal. I think that they should go. I think schools should go through a quality review where they invite outside agencies in or people in once every 3 years to do quality review to make sure that you're doing the teaching and learning is happening in your building. So this is a good one. Again, it's called quality reviews, and I'm sure many of you have had those or been a part of those. And go back to new share. SMART goals, quality reviews. I'm missing one. Here we go. This is just a reminder about action research, which is live research in your building or using, taking the data in your building and using it and to formulate decisions, programs, plans, set your goals. This is just a reminder about what research is tonight. Again, using research to improve instructional practices, the module tonight. Just some things that you had in 602. Just some reminders, the scientific method, education, the purpose of action research, collection analysis of data provides solution to practical value within their own school. You got low reading scores, you do action research. And so you have qualitative and quantitative, and it speaks to that. This is kind of a this is kind of the whole Mel 602 course in a nutshell, right? But this is one keep this one. If you don't have anything else that you kept from 602, keep this, because it's a quick and easy primer on doing research in education and the rationale and how you do that research. And so this is a good tool for your toolbox. Introduction to research. It's a quick and easy one. All right, now the one I want to spend a little time on tonight and introduce you to some new concepts that I really believe in is database decision making. Let's see if I can jump this up. There we go. We can, you can. Okay, here we go. Again, qualitative data is usually acquired from observation or experience. It's interviews or observations. Quantitative data is acquired from standardized measures like test scores. Again, it's a quick review on that. It talks about test scores are a function of knowledge, test-taking ability, and luck. Test scores can be viewed as a combination of skill and luck. One of the things that we need to understand is when we run programs in our buildings, if all the programs do is work on trying to get kids to be better test takers, their test taking ability, their scores will initially go up a little bit, but then they'll regress to the mean. Because if you want kids to do better on math tests, just teaching them how to take the test only works for a short period of time. What works in the long term is teaching them how to do math better. So we can work, our programs can either be knowledge based where we're trying to increase the knowledge of math, or they can be test taking ability based where we're just trying to teach them how to manipulate the math test. You won't hang around long in this business if all you do is run programs that work on test taking skills, because if you want kids to learn more, you have to teach them more subject matter, not just how to take the test, because that again regresses to the mean. That is a statistical concept, by the way, and you can't outrun that. Your scores will go right back. Use programs and treatments to close the gap. Again, if you just work on programs that try to teach kids how to take the test better, you get a one-time benefit. But if you teach them more content, you get an ongoing benefit. These are some concepts from statistics. Standard deviation. When we're looking to see how much growth that or gain that kids could make from a particular program, that should be measured in standard deviations. That way, we won't be confused when we're talking about points, the difference between a 100-point scale, quartiles, raw scores that can be as high as to how much gain should be expressed in a program could potentially give you should be expressed in standard deviations. One standard deviation would be great. So when I see schools that write in their school improvement plan that they want to raise their math scores by 20 points in 1 year, which would be 4 standard deviations, that's not realistic. It's also statistically impossible. So we're looking for things that could be could get us at least a standard deviation of gain. You should be looking at your standardized test scores when we're talking about closing the gap, putting in programs or treatments in our schools. It shouldn't be things that are not easily measured. I was working with a group in the western part of the state one time, and they found that the biggest, greatest area of need in their school was kids to pass some test, on balancing a checkbook or something like that, in some class. And I said, no, that's is it on the state report card? And they said, well, of course not. I said, well, then it can't be your most pressing need. So when we're looking to close gaps in schools and set SMART goals and work on school improvement plans and try to change teaching and learning in a building, we need to have we need to start with a standardized test score from the state report card, something that's measurable. So what I created was an algorithm. In mathematics or computer science, an algorithm is an effective method to a finite list of well-defined instructions for calculating a function. In simple terms, algorithm is a step-by-step process for calculations. And so here we're going to go. So what I developed was an algorithm of how to make a program decision. When I mean a program decision, we've got a problem with our reading scores, and we need a closing the gap program, something to try to affect our reading scores. What program would we pick? A lot of times folks just kind of jump right to that. I'll be reading their app cells, and they'll have their area of most pressing need, and it'll be reading, and then in the very next we implemented this particular program, and I'm like, wait a minute. How do we go through reading is our biggest problem all the way to we got this program, we're going with it? What steps were in between in deciding which program to adopt to try to change or improve your math scores? The devil's in the details. I mean, that in itself, that's where research and education comes in to improve teaching and learning. That's that big, wide step between, or several steps between reading is our problem and here's the reading program that we're going to implement to address that. That's where you make your money as a school administrator, is the steps that you would go through to figure out, okay, I've analyzed my data, reading's my problem, it's comprehension, not fluency. They're all English speakers, and so it's not a fluency issue, and so phonics won't help. It's a comprehension issue. Which of the reading programs should we adopt, or what strategies should we adopt? And so here are the factors when adopting a program. The funding source, who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be local? Is the school system going to have to come up with it, or me at the school level going to have to come up with the funding? Is it come from a grant? Is the state funding it, or is the federal government funding it? The total cost, initial and startup costs, ongoing costs for the duration of the program, including in-service. Is it something really expensive that you have to send 2 or 3 staff members every year to, and it costs a fortune to do that? I mean, what is the ongoing? Do they have a lot of materials that they make you buy every year? Those are important factors. Personnel costs. Will we have to hire new people, or will we have to free up people in the daily schedule to do this new program? Time, the length of times it takes. What's the ramping up? How long does it take to implement it? Will I be fired, before we ever get around to getting it fully implemented? If test scores go bad for 2, is it a 3-year implementation cycle? 5? Is it 3 months? What's the length of time to implement this program? Relevance, the number of subgroups affected, goodness of fit. I mean, is it going to only affect a small subgroup of students in our building? We need a program that's as wide as possible to help as many students as possible. Projected benefit, the historical average score increase. Again, that should be reported in standard deviations. See, a lot of companies that are trying to sell you programs will report big scores like 15-point game, but then you find out it was on a 400-point scale, and it's like, well, that's really not very much. Standard deviations can't be faked. Reputable companies report their gains in standard deviation. Supervision required in terms of how much time is it going to require of existing personnel. How much evaluation is going to be required in this program? Are we going to be constantly evaluating? How much time is it going to take our existing personnel to do evaluation? Regression to the mean, we've already talked about. Is this a program that's a one-time benefit by teaching them how to take the reading test better, or is it an ongoing benefit? Is it a program that addresses their reading comprehension skills? And then the political climate. Is it negative, neutral, or positive for this kind of change? Reading 360 in North Carolina has a very positive right now, but we've had some reading programs that came along, or some things like Common Core that were very negative. And so those things factor into your decision making in terms of what programs to adopt as a result of doing your research and analyzing your data. So here are some rationalizations. Federal state money is preferable because you are using somebody else's money and the cost does not come out of the local budget. Grants are less preferable due to almost universal matching funds from local sources or provisions. All right. Now what that means is generally nowadays when you get a grant, there's in-kind money expected from your district. Sometimes they'll say, we'll give you $100,000, but your district has to match it. We'll give you $100,000, your district has to do $50,000 in kind, materials. Or your district will give you $25,000, but your district can't take an administrative fee of 18% off the top. There's usually in kind, so again, federal and state money is more preferable because there's less strings attached. Grant, and then the least preferable, of course, is local, where you have to come up with the money yourself. Total cost, program treatment costs that are substantial in terms of percent of total per pupil expenditure are likely to be controversial, regardless of the funding source. I remember several years ago the high school challenge in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and we had some commissioners that got on TV and just ranted and raved about $6 million. The problem was the senior staff did not couch that money in the correct terms. What they needed to explain was that was less than 1/10 of 1% of the total budget of the district. Less than 1/10 of 1%. Yes, $6 million is a lot of money, but at that time the budget in CMS was $1.4 billion with a B. So $6 million wasn't a lot of money, relative to what they were trying to do in the high school challenge. So you need to be cognizant of the kind of money you're spending, no matter what the source in terms of the total budget. And you also can use that to your advantage. If it's a big number, you can also say that this is such a small percentage of our total budget, and kind of deflects some of that political criticism that you get in terms of cost of programs. You need to avoid programs that cause you to have to hire new or additional personnel. And it's highly controversial in the area of shrinking budgets and reductions in force, and you got to bring new people in. It's a lot more advantageous to use programs that use existing personnel than having to bring in new people. Generally, in terms of time, you need 2 or more years of student data for a program evaluation after full implementation. Problem is, administrative contracts are 2 to 4 years, and that's what I was talking about. Sometimes things don't turn around. They get somebody else before you have time. So you need to try to find programs that take 2 years or less. Anything that takes longer than 2 years from implementation to a testing cycle where you can collect data, if it takes too long, you won't be around. Relevance, the bigger the impact, the better. Again, the more subgroups or the larger population that you can hit with this program, the better you're going to be. Goodness of fit means make sure that this program worked with a similar population and sample size and area. I had a colleague years ago who adopted a program that had worked really well in New England in a private Catholic middle school. It did not work real well in Western North Carolina, completely different populations. So you need to make sure that you know where this program worked well. Projected benefit, again, standard deviation is a better predictor of true gain, and it also controls better for luck, chance, and error. That's all factored into standard deviation. You're not, some disreputable companies that try to sell product to educators and programs, sometimes what they do, they'll have an anomaly. They'll have one school that just blew it out the water for whatever reason. Standard deviation controls for that. So standard deviation looks at all the schools that they had, not just involved in their program, not just one. Supervision required. You don't want to add too much building administrators' daily schedule, but their job is supervision. What I mean there is that they should be in the classrooms already seeing what's going on. Administrators are supposed to do that, but you don't want programs that require intensive supervision, just normal, like every day. Evaluation, same thing. See above, you don't want something that requires a whole lot more evaluation. I've already explained regression to the mean. Again, programs or treatments that just rely on manipulating the test itself, not good. You want actual learning. If you want kids to read better, you got to teach them better. Teach them more reading. Political climate, open schooling, whole language, developmentally appropriate, Montessori, Common Core. Try to avoid the hot button issues if you can. All right. So how does this work? So here is the algorithm. When we take the scores from all these factors, funding, total cost, personnel, time, relevance, projected benefit, supervision, we set a baseline score of 100. And when I actually use this, I would tell folks before we started, never adopt anything that doesn't score at least 85 on this scale. Before you go in, if it's scoring down in the 40s on this scale, that you're going to have problems. So funding, if the source is federal or state, that gives you 20 points. Grants 10, local 5. Total, if it's less than 1% of your total per pupil expenditure for your district, that's a good thing. Give yourself 10 points for that program. And you can kind of see how it goes through here. Relevance, if it affects all of your school students in your building, that's a 10. If it's a single subgroup, that's 2.5. And so when you put all these point totals together, 80 to 85, if a particular program can't score 80 to 85, it's not going to be very successful for you. This is a quantitative way to measure some things that we have always just used opinion and qualitative methods on. just talk to people, or we observed, or whatever. This is a way to put some quantitative, some number, some real life statistical principles to how we select programs, educational, instructional programs in schools. This is not a new idea, but it's not something that a lot of folks do. What happens is they identify a need and they sit around a table and they talk about it, might do a little reading, or they heard somebody else did this or that. This is a more methodical, scientific method of how to pick programs in your school to close the learning gaps. We go back to using research for educational improvement. It speaks to the scientific method. This is the scientific method of how you go about making program decisions to impact in teaching and learning positively. Here's your little worksheet that you could use and your rationalization, and here's report cards. These are some of the old report cards, but you can get those. So this is a tool that you could use, that could be introduced when you become the administrator, to help you to make sure that you make sound educational decisions when you're choosing what programs that you're going to use in your school to close the gap and to improve teaching and learning in your building. So again, this one's a little more complicated. Kind of ignore the first 2 or 3 slides here. I did a presentation with this one for some students, and so when you get past the gotcha slide, you're good. So there is that one. So let's go back. Let's see if we can do a new share here. And make sure that we've covered everything that we said we would cover tonight. Again, I've got a PowerPoint for you for SMART goals. I've got a PowerPoint for action research that just reminds you, the basics of educational research. I've got one on quality reviews, which are a scientific method of how to collect information and data on your schools, more than just the test score data. And a lot of time it's through a different lens or a new set of eyes. And then database decision making on how you use quantitative principles in statistics to make program decisions about educational programs, instructional programs, to close score gaps in your building and to improve teaching and learning in your building.
Yeah.
So again, tonight's topic was research and education. You had some good activities to do. You had a website to go to. You had some good reading that supports all these. These 4 things that I have for you here are tools for your toolkit for practicing administrators. This you can't carry a textbook around, but you can have these things, and you can use these with teachers and with your school improvement team or your PLCs in decision making. You can use these in those groups to develop SMART goals, to set about doing action research, to set about making decisions about programs and activities for your school, and then and also how to collect data on your school, more than just test score data, to try to make some program changes in your building. Okay, that's the material that I had for you tonight. I see my time is running good. Again, next week, let's go to Zoom session 5 and see what we got on tap. So next week, if folks have not done, see, next week is AppTel component B for next week, September 28th. And so if your group, if everybody hasn't already peer reviewed and got that one in task stream, you're to do one this week. And so let's look at our groups. If my spreadsheet will open here. Let's see, I may have to go back and change my share here when this pops up. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
And so you can see for next week, here are your groups. So, Angela, so particularly for you, you are the group leader for next week. If you and Melissa and Jason have already completed 2B, which is component B of the app tail, if you've already had yours peer reviewed and it's already been posted to task stream, if that's happened for all three of you, then you get the week off.
Great.
And that's the way it works. So they asked me that question last night, so I'll give you the answer now. And so we go to the next week, which will be October 5th. Again, that one is AppTel Component C. If that same thing, if they've already done C, if it's already been peer reviewed and it's already in task stream, they get another week off, and it keeps going that way all the way through the 6 weeks. And then I scrambled them.
The person who's first is that person always the leader? No.
No, that person, you will rotate leadership. You are the first week, and then Melissa is the second week, and then Jason is the third week.
Okay.
And then the other 3 weeks, I scrambled you, and on those, the first person is the leader in those. But for the first 3 weeks, I kept you the same. I was hoping to get one out of you during those weeks, but again, so Angela will be the leader for next week, and then Melissa will be for the following week, and then Jason. So that's the way that works.
Okay. Question, Dr. Lam.
Yes.
What if one of my partner does not do her work and I have nothing to peer review?
Well, then you won't have one to do then.
Okay.
Again, part of, we're trying to run these kind of like mini PLCs where everybody has, we have norms and values and responsibilities. And so if one person doesn't do theirs, then the other two's kind of, they can do one another.
Okay. Okay.
That's why you've got three. But I'm trying to show you, just like in real school, that when you have PLCs and one person is not living up to the norms and values of the group and not doing their work, that becomes a problem for the group. What I'm hoping is the leader of the group will try to figure out a way to either help or motivate that person who isn't doing their work. Because that's what you'll have to do once you take over PLCs, is what we talked about last week. There's 3 levels of PLC, and the first level, the basics of a PLC when you're running one kind of like Tabitha, is the very first thing is setting those norms and values and getting people to turn in their work and do what their assignment each week.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to mirror with this process here is if I had fall out, my colleagues are driving me crazy. How do I lead them to get them to do the things that they need to do? And so that's why I did this. I know this is kind of an over-the-top exercise, I guess, but there is a rhyme and reason to why, and it's not a secret. What I'm doing is I'm setting up Zoom peer reviews to mirror the PLC process and the issues that you have in PLCs. Now's a good time to be learning about those issues and problems and potential solutions to those before you get out on the job as an AP and they put you in charge of running PLCs and none of them are working and none of them are functional. They're all dysfunctional. Maybe you can learn some tips along the way to help you, things that fit your personality and your leadership style that will help you to be able to improve or to at least get PLCs working in your building. Again, that's one of those things as an AP that you're more than likely, they give the new AP all the dirty jobs that nobody else wants. You'll have to walk around with the custodian and do the safety audits and fire drills, and you'll have to, a lot of those kind of management functions. But on the instructional side, they'll put you in charge of PLCs, because nobody wants to do it because they're just a bag of screaming cats. And so hopefully through this process, you will pick up some tools of your own to put in your toolkit on how to deal with PLCs, with faculty members, with peers who aren't fulfilling their roles, their norms and values. Okay. Questions? Does anybody have any questions on tonight's presentation? Let's see if any came in over the wire. Sometimes I get questions, there's by email for people who aren't on video but who are listening and who are on their phone. I got a couple last week. Let's see if we're out. Nope. I didn't get any tonight by text or email. All right. We're about 50 minutes in, so if anybody has any questions, now's the time. If not, I will see you next week. And again, Zoom session 5 next week is about, you can upload them, you can send me a link, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share your Zoom sessions where you peer review AppTel Component B. Hopefully we'll have at least one group who will have something for us to see next week.
Okay.
If there are no questions, I'll sign off for the evening, and I will see you next Wednesday at 7.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Young. Bye.
Bye-bye.